Hello, my name's Alex from the Advent Label Applicator Company. This is going to be a demonstration of an Advent 310, a unique pressure-sensitive labeler. We're going to be demonstrating it with aluminum cans that are unfilled. We're putting a pressure-sensitive label, as you can see here, a very attractive, nice synthetic label. It's fairly thick. And we're just going to go ahead, we're going to do a changeover to the 12-ounce can. We already have the machine set up for these larger cans, and I think 16 ounces, and we're just going to go ahead and start labeling it. So once the machine's threaded and adjusted, just simply insert a container, and unfortunately I put it in backwards, so let me just go ahead and correct that. So we just want it oriented the correct direction. Just like that. Label goes on, and as you can see here, it sits there until you put the next container in there, and then it just rolls on out. And we just have it rolling out onto our counter right here. You can have that rolling out to an accumulating table, an empty box. Some people set up a conveyor line where it twists it back up to the vertical position. It's just going to roll out, and you can see there's a lot of flexibility there. And we went ahead and labeled those containers just like that. We've set up the carriage that's adjustable from 1 to 12 inches in diameter. And we have a standard overhead pressure arm which allows unfilled and to be pushed through or labeled without any problems. So you can do both filled or unfilled with the overhead pressure arm. And let me just get oriented here a little bit, and then we'll just go ahead and try to be as quick as possible with these cans. I imagine once you have everything set up correctly, so we're probably looking at about 25 to 30 containers per minute. You can see that the label goes on in about a second. Just like that. Now we're going to run out of space on our roll through, so see here, it's putting those labels on without any bubbles or wrinkles. Looks absolutely fantastic. And I do notice I'm putting them upside down. I think somebody was adjusting our guides over the weekend. So what I'm going to go ahead and do, we have some more. I'll go ahead and pause the video, just correct everything, and then we'll go ahead and finish up the video. Okay, so we just reoriented the can for the different copy position. So we have 9 left, and we're just going to go ahead and label them as quickly as possible. You can see, really well done, even with some of the cans being a little bit dented on the surface. This label applies quite nicely, and even unfilled, it looks really, really great. Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and do a changeover. And so this part of the video will be a little bit longer. We're going to change over to these 12-ounce containers. So let me move the machine out. Okay. So the first thing we're going to do is remove the labels. This is your rewind system. This pulls up the waste material. Usually if I'm doing a mid-roll change, I'll pull out some of that material so you don't waste any labels. And then this just pops out. It's like a roll of toilet paper. It's spring-loaded. Usually you just want to get a little bit loose, and you can just pull it off. This goes back into place. These little notches. We also have an adjustable clutch here, mechanical clutch, so you can adjust the amount of tension. That pulls up the waste material. Then we're going to take out our roll of labels. We have a brake arm system that keeps back pressure on the labels. That's what allows the label to be wrapped around the surface nice and tight. We have a brake arm spring, so you want to disconnect the brake arm spring. We do have a lot of tension because we're using a plastic label onto an aluminum surface. That's one of the key adjustments on this type of label surface. Okay. And once this, you can see, I could pull that through the machine. video. I'm trying to stay out of the frame of the video. But generally, you would just go ahead and pull it through. So there we go. We have label guides to simple thumb locks. Release this one. Now you'd like to use one of them just to push the roll of labels off. Okay. And we're just going to put our roll of labels oriented the same way. Generally you want it to be on the center line. You can see if we put it on just stand, it would be very, very loose. We have these little guides, spring clips, not guides, but clips that stick up, and what they're supposed to do is they're supposed to bite into the core. So when you slide that on, you always want to make sure that the core is on there nice and tight. Generally, if it's very loose, you might have to add a label or something to the inside of the core to help that bite into those clips. So if it doesn't, it defeats the brake arm. Then usually you get more than one label on the roll. Okay, so let me just go ahead and put this back in. So generally, you want to put the towards me, or away from the camera, the screen. You can see it just falls into place. Let me just double check, I can't see. Yes. So you can see it falls into that slot. Then we just go ahead and grab our backing material and pull it through. This rollout plate comes out just like that. And it goes underneath this idler. It has these webbing guides on them. Goes underneath this supporting shaft, towards the front of the machine, underneath this other idler with these webbing guides, underneath, and you pull up. Then we have our peel bar, which has Teflon tape on it. Just pops on out, just lift up, and then put it back with the sharp edge facing up and towards the white rollers. Falls back into those two little notches. You can see it's nice and even across. And generally, I like to just put a little point and put it between those two matte black rollers. One's a 4-inch drive roller and the other is an 8-inch pinch roller. And how the machine works is when you put the container in, this lever gets depressed by the container and then it sends a signal to the solenoid to bring those two rollers together. And that's what pulls the labels through the machine. You can see it comes back down. And you just want to pull it until you get to the slit. A little bit more. The label might pop out. You want to wrap it around just once. And then you come back up. Grab that label if it's coming out. And you can see labels start shooting out. And that's because we didn't reattach the brake arm. So you want to go ahead and reattach the brake arm spring. That's what activates this white strap and prevents that roll of labels from feeding forward. So you can see here, grab that label. And you can see now it's stopped. So I pull it through. And then I want to test my trigger. And it has a dwell adjustment on the front. 0 doesn't pre-feed any of the label, or a very small amount. Generally, most labels are going to be a setting of 3. We want about 25% of the label to be fed out. You can see there, and when I pull it out, I can feel a lot of back pressure. And that's good, because we want the label to be wrapped around nice and tight. So I'm going to do that twice. You're looking for the same amount. And that allows the labels to start to track up nice and straight. Once they've done that, you can just move your webbing guides back in. It kind of locks the label into position. And you can do that in the rear. So generally a changeover will take about 3 to 5 minutes. As you become more practiced, it's very straightforward. So that's the rollout plate. Let's into its gravity. Okay. And then we're going to go ahead and adjust for the container. So let me see where the label's oriented. So the open is copy position number 3. what I like to do is the same diameter, so we don't need to adjust the carriage, but you could if you needed to. And what I do is I just look based on the backing. Then I just move my guides. And you don't want them too tight, especially with an open aluminum container, because they're not going to be exactly the same height. So you need to have a little bit of wiggle room right there. You have an Allen wrench tool which comes with the machine. If you needed to adjust the overhead pressure arm, you would take your tool and you can move it left and right. Usually you want it in the center line, and then you want a little bit of a gap on this stop. Tighten it up. What that does is that prevents it from falling down, so you don't have to lift it up each and every time. So all your adjustments look fairly good right there. You can see. I think that label's perfectly placed, and you can see there, it rolls out nice and smoothly. Get a little bit closer to that edge here. Okay, so we'll do a couple more. Oriented correctly. Yeah, that looks good. Now if I wanted to adjust, let's say I wanted that label to be just a tad down, I just open up my guides and then slide things over. And then you could take the same container. You can see how that we just moved it down a little bit. Now of course that's the neat thing about the 310 is you can operate it like a standard 300. So you don't have to push it through. You can just take it out, label it, and take it out. So if you wanted to go directly into a box, let's say. So let me point out a couple things and then I'll get oriented again. One of the neat things about the machine is that these rollers are fully adjustable. So you can move these rollers left and right. And in this case, you can see how I have that guide just kind of hovering over that guide. If that falls down, that might put a mark on it. So a little bit of an advanced setup. So you could toggle the machine and you could orient those guides, or you can move those rollers over to clear. You can see there. You can do that to the front. That's especially helpful if you have a container with a recessed label area. So let me go ahead. You can see if it falls down, it's not going to hit those neoprene rollers and mark them. You can see, just tighten that up into place. It also allows this guide to go a little bit further down to get a little bit better clearance. Okay. Go ahead and label these. Yeah, so that's a really good setup for that container. So let me just go directly from the box. That right there. I do notice that sometimes these labels are creeping up a little bit, and that usually means that that core is not on that mandrel especially well. So I'm just going to go ahead and pause, make that fine adjustment, and then we'll go and finish up this video. Okay, so what I simply did was I actually, in this case, the clutch was pulling a little bit too hard, so I just opened it up a little bit so it's not pulling as tightly. Generally when you turn it on, it should just give a little bit but spring back into position. So you can see we don't have any label creep right there. So I'm just going to go ahead and start labeling these containers as quick as I can. Some of these are dented, so we can pop them out. But again, you can see it's really quick. I think as long as the operator could get his hand on the container as quick as he can, you could probably do about 30 a minute comfortably. And you can see this one was fairly dented, but still did a fairly good job of getting that label on. You can see in there. Pop that dent out. But let's take a look at these other ones. And they look fairly good. You do have a little bit more room on the label. You could probably go about another 1/8 of an inch. You do want some clearance from the rounded edges, but again, pressure sensitive label on these unfilled aluminum containers look really good. And that's the Advent 310 push-through labeler. Thank you.